Welcome to For the First Time in Forever, the show that aims to fill the gaps in all of our watch lists. Last week we took a very glum trip to the American West when we spoke about No Country for Old Men, and if you haven't seen that you can check that out by clicking the link in the description below. But this week we're in for a total mindfuck. So pop on your best demonic rabbit costume, brush up on your time travel, and prepare yourself for one of the most original films I think I've ever seen. This is Donnie Darko. Wait a second. I am going to be talking about spoilers for this film, so consider this your warning now.
28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end.
Now I'm actually going to start this video with a word of caution, and that is, if you like having your films explained to you, the meanings revealed to you within the confines of the film, so when you come out you know exactly what the film was saying, what it was about, then you're probably not going to get on with Donnie Darko. You see, ambiguity in films is a very tricky thing to do, because it means passing the reins over essentially from filmmaker to audience. When certain events are left deliberately unclear, it's down to the audience to come up with their own reasonable conclusions. And Donnie Darko is wholly ambiguous. Even Jake Gyllenhaal and Seth Rogen, two of the stars of this film, they don't have a clue what this film was about. Now, in some cases, ambiguity can hinder a movie. Some creators use it as an excuse for lazy storytelling and the inability to tie up loose threads to resolve character arcs, and so by leaving it kind of open-ended and ambiguous, in the eyes of some, it could be considered a bit of a cop-out. But for Donnie Darko, its ambiguity is earned. From the offset, we realise that Richard Kelly, the writer and director of this film, has a very clear and ambitious vision that he is swinging for the fences for. And he is entrusting us to make our own interpretation of these unfolding events. Now, on the surface level, Donnie Darko follows a troubled high schooler suffering from disturbing visions and schizophrenic tendencies, in which he sees and communicates with a demonic-looking rabbit which he calls Frank. Frank explains to Donnie that the end of the world is nearing and that he has to discover time travel to find a potential way of surviving. Now, once again, that is a very surface-level description. I'm going to come at this film from two different angles. Now, first I'm going to go over just some of the typical filmmaking conventions, as if it was just like a normal review. But then I want to talk about a couple of themes. I won't be breaking down the entire film, because believe me, I will be here for days if I did that. But I just want to talk about two themes that really spoke to me. But on the whole, I was blown away by Donnie Darko. For Richard Kelly, this was his feature film debut, and boy did he come out swinging. When it debuted at Sundance in 2001, it received a bit of a lukewarm response. Audiences were kind of left bewildered as to what the film was about. But what knocked me for six was the sheer balls of Kelly. This is really audacious, inventive filmmaking. Now, visually, the film is really pushing a lot of boundaries that, on the whole, would just not appeal to mainstream audiences. Seeing the stream of future emerge from characters to depict the imminent path of those characters may look a little dated in terms of the effects, but to show Donnie beginning to understand and decipher time travel, it just worked brilliantly. Especially that shot when Donnie steps into one of those streams and we get a brief glimpse of what it's like being caught in a time stream. I've said it once, I'll say it again. This is ballsy filmmaking. As for the story, it's outstanding. Judging it once again on the surface level, seeing Donnie wrestle with his mental health, his uncontrollable urge to uncover why Frank is doing this, who Frank actually is, And then the sudden personality switches where Frank has clearly taken control and he's committing these really random and bizarre acts of anarchy. All of that makes Donnie such a wildly interesting and deeply layered character. His therapy sessions allow us a very tiny but integral glimpse into his psyche, so we can try and see what is going on inside his head, and it is all brilliantly performed by Jake Gyllenhaal, who, at this point in his career, this was him coming flying out the blocks. It's one of his best performances, and like I said, as a relative newcomer, this performance helped define and in a way has remained a defining moment in his career. I also thought it was a clever touch to cast his real-life sister Maggie Gyllenhaal as Donnie's elder sister in this film, which, when they're having those petty little squabbles at the dinner table, knowing that they're actually siblings in real life, that kind of adds to the authenticity. Jenna Malone turns in a strong performance as Donnie's love interest Gretchen, and even Patrick Swayze pops up as the really sleazy douchebag motivational speaker who might have one of the cheesiest motivational videos I think I've ever seen.
Love.
Love.
Fear.
Fear. And the ingenuity is more than enough to keep you on your toes, even if you are struggling to comprehend certain things that are going on. The pace never drags, and there are genuine moments of horror that are grounded, albeit in a somewhat deceptive reality. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I have an answer for everything that's in this film. I've only seen it the once, and I'm 99% sure that I did not pick up on every single detail. In fact, this really does strike me as one of those films where you're going to learn something new, or even see the film in a completely different light each and every time you rewatch it. But the fact that it manages to really cleverly and seamlessly integrate time travel into what is essentially a psychological thriller is outstanding. As for that time travel element, I won't even begin to touch on that in this video, because I'm still not entirely sure on the ins and outs of how there is two separate realities kind of running parallel with each other. You've got a temporary universe that we're seeing most of the film in, that's being caused by a glitch in the fourth dimension. It's hurting my head just talking about it now. But in general, on that aspect of the film, because it is such an important part, that mystery is more than enough to keep me entertained and intrigued. Okay, now let's take a little dive into those two themes I mentioned before. The first is fear. Now, as humans, we're always told that we shouldn't have to live our lives in fear. But the majority of the characters in this film are faced with their own fears, however they exhibit it in two different responses. Characters such as Patrick Swayze's motivational speaker and Miss Farmer are deeply afraid of fear, and choose to ignore it and push it to one side. We later see this to have a detrimental impact on their character. For Miss Farmer, she expresses fear about the Destructors by Graham Greene being taught to students at her school, a book in which, as Donnie describes it, teaches that for there to be change and creation, something first needs to be destroyed.
They say it right when they flood the house and they tear it to shreds, that destruction is a form of creation, so the fact that they burn the money is ironic. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart.
For Swayze, it's his inability to promote fear as something to be overcome, and sells himself as someone who literally just tells people to repress it. Even a schoolmate of Donnie's, Charita Chen, despite making attempts to overcome it, eventually allows her life to be run by fear as she runs away from Donnie despite clearly having a crush on him. We see these characters face up to their internalized repressions and fall victim to their own insecurities and fears. Swayze is revealed to have a stash of child pornography, while Miss Farmer suffers a severe breakdown as she refuses to believe these accusations and begins defending Swayze despite the overwhelming evidence. All because she would rather ignore and repress the truth that she fears rather than work to overcome it. In today's world, she'd be labelled as a Karen. She'd be probably moaning about wearing a mask, saying that it's hindering her God-given right to breathe. What we see Donnie able to do, however, is use his fears and manipulate it for his own good. his fear of Frank haunting his dreams, his fear of the impending end of the world. Rather than brush it under the carpet pretending that it doesn't exist, Donnie actively works towards solving these issues to overcome it. He even brilliantly explains to Miss Farmer that fear cannot be categorized under one definition. With the same principle of love, in that you shouldn't love something blindly, you shouldn't have to fear fear itself. Instead, we should look to it, overcome it, and learn from it. And that leads into the second theme that I want to talk about, and that's destiny. Finding what it is you want to do and ensuring that you are the only one in control. That's something that is often discussed throughout this film. Donnie is allowing himself to be controlled by Frank despite it being part of his subconscious, and that leads to him committing acts of anarchy. But once he detaches himself from the grasp of Frank and realizes that he's caught in some form of perpetual time displacement, he takes his own destiny into his own hands, even if that means returning to the moment from when the jet engine crashes into his bedroom, killing him. Whereas for the other characters who allow themselves to fall in line and for their life to be controlled by someone who isn't them, such as Donnie's mother, who after succumbing to the pressure of Miss Farmer to chaperone her daughter's dance team, is a victim of the plane crash at the end. These characters are destined to live an unfulfilling life because of their inability to take control of their own futures. Heavy, right? I also want to add, this is just my own interpretation of these events. I've got nothing concrete to say that what I've just said is right or necessarily wrong. It's just what I have gathered and come to my own conclusion, which is pretty much what this movie is asking you to do. Donnie Darko is an experience that is going to be playing on my mind for years to come. It's a film that I can categorically say that you will not be the same person by the time it finishes. Jake Gyllenhaal is sublime, and Richard Kelly gives one of the best debuts from a filmmaker I think I have ever seen. It's a heck of a lot to process, and it really isn't going to appeal to a lot of people, but for me, the more I'm going to end up rewatching this and throw various theories and ideas around in my head, the more and more I think I'm going to fall in love with it. So, after watching Donnie Darko for the first time in forever, it is well and truly God tier. Anyway guys, those are my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you thought of Donnie Darko down in the comments below, as well as any films that are on your immediate watch list that you are still yet to get around to seeing. Before I go, I just want to give a ginormous thank you to ThinkUnplugged. They sent me this a couple of days ago. It is the very first, or at least I'm calling it, the very first official piece of Luke's Reviews fan art. This is nuts. Never in a million years did I even think I'd be getting close to 100 subscribers on this channel, let alone being sent fan art. I'm absolutely blown away by this. Thank you so much to ThinkUnplugged for doing this. I will drop a link to their Facebook page and their Instagram page. Please go and check them out. They do fantastic artwork, and give them a little message. Say that Luke sent you. Also, as I'm sure some of you might be aware, we are on the road to 300 subscribers. Ideally, I want to do that by the time I reach my 2nd anniversary on YouTube. So and I think that's sometime in late October. So if we can reach 300 subscribers by then, that would be incredible. If you are new to the channel, you have enjoyed what you've seen here, please click that subscribe button. It will be the absolute world for me. And if you are already subscribed, but you know some people who aren't subscribed that you think would love this channel, please share it with them and let them join the Luke's Review army. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and here is a little teaser for next week. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the links to my social media accounts, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and my letterbox are all in the description below. And if you haven't liked the video, what are you still doing here?